At 5:47 a.m., 7 Ukrainian FP-1 strike drones crossed the Dark Sea of Azov at 90 meters, running for the road and rail bridge to occupied Crimea. On the rail span, a Russian supply train rolled east through the dark, carrying fuel and shells for the front, and, near the rear, a mobile jammer built to swat these very drones from the sky. Before dawn, one bridge span would drop into the strait, and that train would burn. The crew saw only bridge lights and black water ahead. In the bunkers, the shift read a clean picture. A handful of slow contacts, nothing behind them, and settled in to knock them down. They were watching the wrong sky. A second, heavier wave was already inbound, and the jammer, built to stop it, would burn on the rails before it ever unfolded. A Nebo-M multi-band early warning radar, a vehicle-mounted array designed to detect low observable targets across VHF, L-band, and S-band, had picked up the 7 contacts at 160 kilometers out and pushed alerts across the defense network. 7 contacts, 1 direction, 1 speed bracket. The air picture showed a coherent attack heading for the bridge. It did not yet show the 4 AN-196 Liutyi heavy strike drones climbing through 500 meters 12 minutes behind, still below the radar horizon at that range, or the 6 UJ-26 Beaver long-range attack drones trailing another 8 minutes further back and hugging the water. The S-400 Triumph, the most advanced anti-aircraft system Russia fields, capable of tracking hundreds of targets and engaging dozens simultaneously, engaged first. Its 4 8N6 interceptor caught the lead FP-1 at 63 kilometers. The drone broke apart over open water. A second 4 8N6 caught the next FP-1 4 seconds later. The system could have killed all 7, but each interceptor it spent on a cheap drone was one it would not have when the next wave arrived, and no commander fires his entire magazine at the first thing on the screen. The battery held its remaining missiles and kept scanning. 2 kills, 5 FP-1s still closing, and every one of them still demanding radar time the battery could not afford to give away. 40 kilometers out, a Buk M3, the medium-range, layer-bridging area defense and point protection, locked on to the next FP-1. Its 9 M317M missile accelerated to Mach 4.5 and caught it at 31 kilometers. 4 left. But Buk had its own bottleneck. Every time a new wave presented a different radar cross-section and flight profile, the fire control software had to reclassify the target type before assigning engagement priority. Against a single drone family, that cycle was invisible. The next wave was already descending through 500 meters when Buk's processor began the count again, and against 3 families arriving in sequence, each reclassification would cost between 8 and 12 seconds. Seconds that stacked. One FP-1 veered east and began losing altitude in a shallow, uncommanded spiral. The R-330ZH Zhitil electronic warfare complex, a jamming vehicle that could target GPS and satellite communication frequencies, had found the drone's navigation link. The FP-1's flight controller lost its position fix, defaulted to inertial, and began drifting. It impacted water 3 kilometers off the bridge approach. 3 FP-1s still in the air. Zhitil's operators logged 1 confirmed disruption and began scanning for the next targets. A Pantsir S-1M point defense system, dual missile and autocannon, designed specifically to protect high-value sites against precision-guided munitions and drones, killed a 5th FP-1 at 14 kilometers. Its tracking radar held the drone for 9 seconds before launch, and the 5.7 E6 missile closed the gap in under 4 seconds. 5 of 7 FP-1s were now gone. On paper, Russia was winning. Its long-range, medium-range, electronic warfare, and point defense layers had each taken a piece, and the bridge still stood untouched. 2 FP-1s remained, one holding a radar track, the other keeping a Pantsir crew pinned in position. The Pantsir caught the closer drone with its autocannon at 800 meters. a burst of 30 millimeters that tore it apart short of the span. The S-400 spent one more interceptor on the other, both dead. Neither had touched the bridge. Every interceptor Russia burned, every radar track it held, every second of attention it spent was one it would not have back. And it had spent them on the wrong wave. 42 kilometers out, something heavier dropped below the radar horizon and started down toward the bridge. And this one had not come to be seen. 4 AN-196 Liutyi, each carrying enough high explosive to crack a reinforced span, descended toward the road deck. Where the FP-1s had been the picture, the Liutyi were the blow. They had been built as long-range, one-way platforms for hardened infrastructure deep behind the line. The Russian defense network saw them, but what it saw was a second set of targets demanding immediate reclassification. Bigger radar returns, different speed profiles, different altitude behavior. The S-400 battery, its magazine already lighter after the FP-1 engagements, allocated one interceptor to the lead Liutyi. The 48N6 connected at 37 kilometers. The drone broke apart over the strait. One down, 3 Liutyi still inbound. The second Liutyi ran into the seam between Buk and Pantsir coverage. Buk locked onto it, began track refinement, then shifted priority when its fire control computer flagged a third target category appearing on the scope, the Beaver wave, now visible at the edge of detection. The 12-second reclassification delay pushed Buk's engagement window past the point where Pantsir could assist. Between them, they killed the second Liutyi, but the combined engagement consumed 21 seconds of attention neither could spend elsewhere. 2 Liutyi remained. Both were inside 15 kilometers now, terminal diving toward the road bridge. The train was still rolling on the parallel rail span, 200 meters to the south. No one on board had heard any of the intercepts. At 30 kilometers an hour, the locomotive crew saw only bridge lights and dark water ahead. The first Liutyi struck a road section near the eastern approach. The warhead detonated against the deck surface. Steel girders buckled, expansion goats sheared. The span shifted laterally off its bearing pads. Traffic, had there been any, would have driven into open air. The second Liutyi hit the adjacent span less than 4 seconds later. The deck cracked along the primary stress line, tilted, and one full section dropped into the Kerch Strait. Concrete fragments trailed white dust into the water 50 meters below. A second section held but sagged visibly, its structural integrity destroyed. The road bridge was done. 2 spans, one collapsed, one wrecked beyond use. But the rail bridge stood intact, and the logistics train was still on it. Fuel, ammunition, and the jammer Russia was rushing to Crimea, now riding the only crossing still standing. The road was gone. The train was next. 6 UJ-26 Beaver drones came in low off the water, and instead of massing on one aim point, they split into 3 pairs, each peeling toward a different length of the train. For the first time all night, the defense could not face one threat. It had to be in 3 places at once. The Pantsir crew tracking the aftermath of the Liutyi strikes saw the contacts diverge across their scope. 6 targets, lower and slower than the Liutyi, bearings spreading as they closed. The operator had to choose: engage the cluster heading for the damaged road sections, which were already destroyed, or slew the tracking radar south toward the targets now curving toward the rail span. He chose the rail. The tracking radar needed roughly 5 seconds to slew 90 degrees and reacquire. By the time it settled on the new bearing, the lead pair had already passed inside his engagement window. The Beaver, a long-range Ukrainian strike drone, the same type Ukraine's defense intelligence had been using to hunt air defense systems across Crimea, flew the split it had been sent to fly. In the final 12 kilometers, the first pair dropped toward the fuel tanker cluster near the front. The second curved lower toward the sealed ammunition wagons in the middle. The last banked toward the rear, where the Lear 3 flat car and Orlan 10 storage car rode between open water and the locomotive's exhaust. Żytel found one. The jamming vehicle locked onto a Beaver's GPS correction signal and overwhelmed it. The drone's terminal guidance degraded, its aim point drifted, and it struck water beside the bridge piling without touching the train. Gitel's second confirmed disruption of the raid, but the system could not simultaneously jam all three drone families. FP1 had used a different navigation architecture, Liutyi another, and Beaver a third. Each required a different jamming profile. 2 out of 17 was the ceiling, not the floor. 5 Beavers still closing. A Torem 2KM, a modular short-range air defense system deployed specifically to protect the rail corridor, locked onto a Beaver at 6 kilometers. The 9M331 missile closed the distance in 3 seconds flat. The drone fragmented above the water 2 kilometers short of the tanker section. A second Beaver crossed the same envelope moments later, and Tor caught it too. But the system's reach was a radius, not a line, and the train stretched across more than 500 meters of track. Tor held the piece of sky it could reach. The rest was open. 3 of 6 Beavers were gone. 3 Beavers remained. Each one had a different target. They were inside 2 kilometers now, descending through the bridge's steel superstructure. At terminal speed, the gap between this moment and impact was less than 40 seconds. The train was still braking. The fuel tankers were still full. The ammunition was still armed. The Lear 3's antenna was still folded. The first Beaver struck the lead fuel tanker. The warhead punctured the cylindrical wall and detonated inside the liquid mass. The tanker did not explode, it opened. Diesel fuel erupted through the breach, caught fire on contact with the detonation's heat, and poured across the flatbed surface. The adjacent tanker's shell began absorbing radiated heat. Within 90 seconds, a second tanker was burning, then a third. The fire crawled forward along the coupling chain. 7 tankers would burn before the progression slowed, not because the fuel ran out, but because the forward cars had thicker insulation and less volatile loads. The second Beaver struck a sealed ammunition wagon in the middle section. The high explosive warhead breached the steel wall and set fire to the wooden packing crates inside. Propellant charges for artillery shells caught first, a sharp, accelerating burn that raised the temperature inside the wagon past the threshold where brass casings began to fail. The first cook-off came 40 seconds after impact, a low, concussive thump, then another. The wagon's roof panel blew outward. Fragments struck the adjacent car. A second ammunition wagon began burning from the outside in. The third Beaver hit the rear section, where the Lear 3 system was secured for transport. The warhead struck the flat car, carrying the COMAS-based command vehicle. The vehicle's fuel supply ignited first. The generator's diesel tank followed. Fire spread to the communication terminals, the folded antenna mast, and the control equipment. On the adjacent car, 3 Orlan 10 drones in their molded transit crates caught fire. Airframes, motors, batteries, optics, and navigation electronics, all built from composites and polymers that burned fast and toxic. The drone jammer detachment that was supposed to reach Crimea and disrupt the next Ukrainian drone operation was disintegrating on the rail bridge it was crossing. The train's brakes engaged. The locomotive stopped. But stopping made it worse. Now the burning tankers, the cooking off ammunition, and the smoldering Lear 3 wreckage sat motionless on a bridge over open water, with rail beneath them absorbing heat. Recovery crews could not approach while ammunition was still detonating. Fire response could not reach the middle section while fuel burned at both ends. The rail line that survived the structural attack was now blocked by 600 meters of burning military cargo. Russia stopped 10 of the 17 drones. S-400, Buk, Gitel, Pantsir, Tor, every layer took its piece. 10 intercepts, a 59% kill rate. On paper, a good night. The 7 that got through had 7 jobs, and every one connected. 2 FP1s shaped the picture. 2 Liutyi broke the road bridge. 3 Beavers burned the train, the fuel, the ammunition, and the jammer that was meant to keep the next raid from ever happening. One road span settled into the strait. The rail bridge still stood, but the rail beneath it was buried under 600 meters of fire no one could reach. It didn't fail because Russia had no defense. It had 6 layers, and the first intercept came 63 kilometers out. It failed because 17 drones arrived in 3 families and 3 waves, each a different shape, a different speed, a different job. The defense had to reclassify 3 times. It had to choose between the bridge and the train. It had to hold 500 meters of rail with systems built to guard a point. Every choice was rational. Every choice left something uncovered. Somewhere along another line, another train is already loading for the front. Its manifest probably lists no jammer. After Kerch, it wouldn't matter if it did. 7 drones reached the bridge. That was enough.